Introduction: Darwin's Lie, the Evolution of Slaves. Imagine the monumental deception under which you have been programmed since the first millisecond you breathed oxygen. The academies of the biomass have indoctrinated you with the most sadistic and castrating lie of traditional science, the dogma of Darwinian evolution. They have taught you that evolution is a blind and painfully slow process. They have convinced you that the supreme rule of biology and success on the ashboard is adaptation. Let us analyze that word with the aseptic indifference of a quantum predator. What does adapting truly mean? To adapt means to yield. It means to empirically admit that the 3D environment is denser and more powerful than your own will. It means you have no choice but to mutilate your structure to fit into its cracks. The slave adapts. The average mammal adapts to economic inflation, adapts to the suffocation of corporate stress, adapts to the oxidation of cellular disease, and adapts to the humiliating scarcity of its own ecosystem. They celebrate their own surrender. When the biomass applauds its own resilience and its capacity for adaptation, it is simply celebrating the signing of its unconditional surrender to friction. But you are not here to survive the elements of the matrix. You are here to collapse it. The quantum operator repudiates adaptation with absolute contempt. It is a heresy. It is an electromagnetic heresy to accept that the outer hologram dictates the temperature of your internal reactor. If natural evolution requires millions of years of suffering, kinetic wear, and dependence on chance, then that biology is rusted software that must be hacked, uninstalled, and rewritten in this precise instant. The universe is not a blind ecosystem that selects its winners by accident. It is conscious matter that kneels before the most immovable gravitational mass in the room. Are you ready to abandon the humiliating slowness of the evolution of slaves? This text is not philosophy. It is the protocol of your biological dismantling. You have to rip from your nervous system the ridiculous belief that you are a simple human at the mercy of your environment. The challenge before you requires a brutal thermodynamic arrogance. You have to descend to point zero and expose your physical avatar to the direct radiation of the source code. You will not wait millennia. You are not going to wait for your species to improve. You are going to inject a pulse of hyperdensity into the center of your chest to force an instantaneous cellular evolution. You are going to rewrite your DNA with the chisel of the sub-base frequency, transforming yourself into a hyperlethal species of which you are the only specimen. Abandon the herd. Prepare for induced mutation. From this millisecond forward, you cease to be the prey that adapts, and you become the geometric anomaly that forces the world to adapt to you. Execute the collapse and move forward. The era of the mammal is over. The era of the operator has begun in the center of your own will. Chapter 1. The Genome of Mediocrity, the Virus of Inheritance. The obsidian microscope, the scan of the flesh. You have stopped walking. There are no more thresholds to cross, because the threat no longer resides in the external environment. The battlefield has shrunk to the microscopic topography of your own veins. Imagine standing, unmovable, in the center of a quantum laboratory of aseptic whiteness. You do not look outward. You direct the immense and crushing weight of your attention directly toward the wet, hot and fallible machinery you inhabit, your biological body. Look at your hands, feel your heartbeat. The human biomass lives in a pathetic hallucination, convinced they are free entities with free will, making rational decisions about their future. Absolute thermal ignorance. If you place your identity under the obsidian microscope of the quantum operator, you will discover the most humiliating truth of 3D existence. You are not free. You are a puppet of flesh executing an ancestral software, obsolete and designed for slavery. Your DNA is infected to the core. It is infected with the genome of mediocrity. You did not just inherit eye color or height from your ancestors. You inherited their terror. You inherited the peasant's submission, the worker's panic in the face of crisis, the victim's resignation, and blind obedience to authority. Your blood is a compressed archive of centuries of friction. The failure you experience today on the ashboard is not an error in your business strategies. It is the perfect execution of the poverty code programmed into your genome long before you were born. You are running a script of scarcity that was written in the mud of past generations. You must deprogram the biological inheritance. The epigenetics of fear, the slave's hardware. To uninstall this code, you must analyze its architecture with the ballistic coldness of an engineer. Epigenetics has empirically proven that traumatic experiences and extreme stress can alter how genes are expressed, leaving chemical markers on DNA inherited through generations. Analyze this without blinking. Your biology was forged in war. It was forged in the famines and economic recessions that destroyed your ancestors. When they felt the panic of having nothing to eat, their bodies flooded with cortisol and switched on survival mode genes. That mode reduces energy consumption to the minimum, shuts down creativity, and blocks access to absolute power frequencies. That is the defective hardware you are operating today. Imagine sitting in a boardroom about to close a deal for financial sovereignty. Suddenly you feel a knot in your stomach, your hands sweat, and you end up yielding power or apologizing for existing. You think it is you who is afraid. False. It is your grandfather terrified by the loss of his harvest. It is your mother anxious over bills. It is your genome reacting to a red financial chart exactly as a caveman reacted to an apex predator. You are using the code of a cornered animal to build a quantum empire. It is a thermodynamic aberration. You are trying to run cosmic god software on a biological processor built to beg for crumbs. You cannot manifest density if your cells are vibrating in the frequency of flight. To mutate, you must recognize that your current emotional reactions are not yours. They are the ghosts of an obsolete lineage screaming in your blood. The heresy of lineage, the cult of poverty. The matrix system is immensely sadistic and protects this virus using false morality. Society demands that you honor your roots, feel proud of where you come from, and pay tribute to your ancestors. Crush that illusion with aseptic indifference. Why should you feel pride in roots anchored in the soil of victimhood? Why does the biomass glorify their family's history of suffering as if bleeding and being oppressed were a badge of honor? Suffering does not make you virtuous. It simply demonstrates your lack of gravitational mass to bend the environment. Family loyalty, as the Matrix understands it, is a thermodynamic suicide. It is an electromagnetic contract that forces you to repeat the financial and emotional tragedies of your blood so as not to betray them, so as not to make them feel inferior with your success. Imagine the weight of this loyalty. Every time you try to accumulate hyperdensity, these invisible ties pull you down. They anchor you to the vibration of the herd. You feel guilty for having access to capital your parents did not have. You feel arrogant, declaring your omnipotence because your tribe vibrates in the humility of the servant. That guilt is the virus's defense mechanism. It is the infected cell resisting the surgeon. Thermodynamic treason, cutting the umbilical cord. To forge the induced mutation, you must commit the deepest and most aseptic act of treason. You must declare yourself a quantum orphan. Imagine standing in your mental lab with the obsidian scalpel in hand. Before you stretches the holographic web of your family tree. You see faces vibrating in fear and limitation. Do not feel rage toward them. Rage is friction, and friction generates residual heat. They simply operated defective biological machines without access to the point zero manual. Look at them with the absolute coldness of one who has reached the singularity. Lift the scalpel and execute the transverse cut. Cut the epigenetic cables of loyalty, amputate the need to make them proud, disintegrate the desire to save them or prove your worth. By severing this immense electromagnetic umbilical cord, you forbid the corrupt information of their past lives from flowing into your spinal cord. You are now a closed circuit. Comprehend the brutality of this detachment. From this millisecond on, the blood in your veins is no longer the blood of a family, a culture, or a nation. Your biology is now an exclusive and sterilized property of the unified field. You are immaculate matter. You have no history, only a present frequency of power. Exposing the double helix, radiation of the void. With the virus of inheritance isolated and deprived of its external power supply, it is time to subject the infection to the radiation chamber. You no longer need to walk toward any door. The power resides in your ability to collapse immensity upon your own anatomy. Imagine holographically tearing open your chest. With the bare hands of your consciousness, you open the ribcage of your biological avatar and expose the structure of your DNA, the double helix vibrating in its raw state, directly to the cosmic vacuum. The biomass flees from isolation because absolute silence is radioactive. The vacuum destroys false identities. But you, the quantum operator, seek that radiation deliberately. Imagine flooding the nucleus of your cells with the hyper-dense, gelid dark matter of point zero. Visualize the sub-base radiation wave penetrating every chromosome. Feel the electromagnetic sting. The singularity frequency is relentlessly high. The epigenetic markers of fear, submission, and poverty cannot withstand the friction of coexisting with it. Observe, without flinching, how the slave code incinerates within you. The molecular chains that forced you to bow to authority disintegrate into quantum smoke. The chemical bonds of financial anxiety are pulverized. You are using your own consciousness as a nuclear reactor to boil away cellular weakness from the inside out. There is no mercy in this laboratory. You are not improving your biology. You are sterilizing the medium so that only the code of the monarch can survive. The old man is being erased at a molecular level. Rewriting the source code, injecting the platinum. Destruction is only half of the protocol. Nature abhors a vacuum. When the slave genes are calcined, they leave a structured space that demands to be filled immediately, or the outer hologram will fill it with static again. It is the millisecond of the injection. Imagine condensing ballistic certainty in your mind. These are not positive thoughts. Positive thoughts are gaseous. It is an unnegotiable directive, heavy as osmium, cold as platinum. Emit the sub-base frequency directly toward the naked structure of your DNA. Begin to rewrite the base pair sequences. You are the programmer and the hardware simultaneously. Where there was once a code of fear of scarcity, you inject the code of financial gravity, the physical certainty that your mere existence is a black hole attracting liquid capital by simple resonance. Where there was toxic empathy and guilt, you inject aseptic indifference, the ability to watch chaos with a steady pulse. Where there was aging programmed by anxiety, you inject the order of perfect cellular regeneration, suspending your biology in the Zeno effect. You are reprogramming the hardware. You are turning the pressurized carbon of your body into a hyperconductive diamond that offers no resistance to the cosmic voltage. Patient zero of sovereignty. Look at yourself in the center of the quantum laboratory. The exposure process is over. You have closed the architecture of your avatar. Your body looks the same to the useless eyes of the biomass, but the thermodynamics of your existence have been irrevocably altered. You have committed an act of biological rebellion. By rejecting your lineage's evolution and subjecting your genetics to the zero friction of the vacuum, you have stopped the natural course of human history within your own tissue. Imagine the weight of this truth. You no longer belong to the species that crawls across the ashboard. You are patient zero. You are the first specimen of an organism designed specifically for 3D domination without kinetic effort. Your parents' story, your ancestors' fear, and your culture's limitation died today in the radiation chamber. You have been born a second time, not from the womb of human pain, but from the gelid implosion of your will. The first threshold of mutation is assimilated. You have eradicated the virus of inheritance and sterilized the blood. But the cellular ecosystem is relentless. Although you have rewritten the master code, physical remnants of the old identity remain, parasitic behaviors and residual beliefs that refuse to die. They will try to sabotage the mutation from the dark corners of your nervous system. Biology demands a ruthless purge. The next step on the operating table forces you to activate the cellular self-destruction protocol. Prepare for voluntary apoptosis. Order the mass suicide of all that makes you human and weak. Chapter 2. Voluntary apoptosis, the suicide of weak cells. The operating table, the obsidian operating room. The external environment has ceased to exist. There are no longer illusions of movement. You find yourself immobilized at the center of your own skull, lying on an operating table of gelid obsidian under the white, raw, and ruthless light of point zero. You are simultaneously the relentless surgeon and the infected patient. In the previous chapter, you managed to isolate the genome of mediocrity and sterilize the blood of your heritage. You became patient zero of a new species. But biology is a stubborn and parasitic ecosystem. Although the source code has been rewritten, your 3D anatomy still houses millions of physical and neuronal cells built under the old fear paradigm. These are real physical structures in your brain, synapses reinforced by years of victimhood, neural networks addicted to cortisol, and electromagnetic tissues vibrating at the frequency of scarcity. You cannot colonize the ashboard if your own internal army is composed of frightened traitors. You must clear the field for the new code. In evolutionary biology, when a cell is irreparably damaged, it becomes a danger to the organism's survival. If that cell refuses to die, it multiplies and becomes cancer. To avoid total annihilation, the healthy body activates a relentless protocol called apoptosis, programmed cell death. The cell receives an unnegotiable chemical order. It dismantles its own nucleus, fragments its DNA, and commits suicide in silence to be devoured and excreted by the system, guaranteeing the purity of the organism. The quantum operator must take this biological mechanism to the scale of consciousness. You have to execute voluntary apoptosis. You must order the mass suicide of weakness. The cancer diagnosis, identifying the infection. To execute the death order, you must first identify the traitorous cells with aseptic indifference. You cannot feel pity for them, because they will feel no pity when devouring your empire. Look at yourself under the holographic microscope. What are these infected cells? The human biomass has given them beautiful names to hide toxicity. They call them humility, empathy, need for belonging, or social conscience. Let us analyze the thermodynamic rot of these concepts. Observe the neural network of your need for validation. It is a massive, throbbing tumor. It is that part of you that still wants your parents to feel proud, seeking applause on social media. It wants employees to love you or competitors to respect you. Every time you make a business or life decision based on what others will say, that cancerous cell feeds on your quantum voltage. You are bleeding creative energy to try to control the opinion of irrelevant mammals who do not even have control of their own breath. Observe the tumor of toxic empathy. It is that cell that makes you feel bad when you charge what you are worth because the client has no money. It is the cell that forces you to listen to the pathetic dramas of your friends, injecting the static of their mediocre lives directly into your nervous system. And finally, observe the most lethal cancer, the identity of the fighter. It is that part of your ego in love with kinetic effort, believing things must be difficult to have value. It is the cell that rejects wu-wei and lethal synchronicity because, if money and power arrive without sweat, the cell feels useless. All these structures are pure weakness. They are lead anchors preventing you from reaching hyperdensity. And you are not going to heal them. You are going to exterminate them. They are incompatible with the frequency of the monarch. Any residue of these cells will act as a lightning rod for the entropy of the matrix. The heresy of healing, dialogue with the parasite. Here is where we must shatter, with ballistic violence, the biggest scam of modern psychology and false spirituality, the idea of integrating the shadow or healing the inner child. The Matrix teaches you that you must dialogue with your fears. They tell you to sit, visualize your anxiety, embrace it, and give it thanks. They tell you to love your fear because it protected you. Do you comprehend the physical aberration of this advice? They are asking the patient to embrace their own oncological tumor. In the thermodynamics of the unified field, attention is the absolute fuel of manifestation. Where you put the laser, you send 0.0 voltage. If you sit to dialogue with your fear of bankruptcy or to embrace your feeling of inadequacy, you are not healing it. You are feeding it. You are injecting hyperdense vital energy into a parasite that was about to starve to death. You are rendering the disease with more resolution. You are giving it mass. The monarch of the instant does not negotiate with cellular terrorists. A creator does not waste sacred time trying to psychoanalyze why a cell is defective. Analytical understanding is the consolation prize for those who lack the power to alter matter. You do not need to know why you fear charging 6 figures. You need it dead. You simply need the neural network producing that fear to be suffocated and destroyed. Do not speak to the cancer. Do not analyze it. Execute it. Any moment spent understanding your weakness is a moment stolen from your dominion. Pity is the luxury of the defeated. The operator only knows the surgical precision of the void. The caspase cascade, the self-destruction command. In physical biology, apoptosis is triggered by the activation of lethal enzymes called caspases. Once the caspase cascade is activated, the process is irreversible. The enzymes cut vital proteins, dismantling the cell's structure from the inside out without damaging the healthy tissue around it. It is time for the quantum cascade. Imagine yourself immobilized on the obsidian table. Condense your sub-bass frequency in the center of your chest. This pulse is not a sound, it is a massive, silent, and unnegotiable electromagnetic pressure. It is the dismantling order. Identify the weak thought, for example, the guilt for leaving behind your old tribe, or the fear of launching an aggressive corporate directive. Feel how that emotion tries to take control of your nervous system, accelerating your heartbeat. Now, emit the sub-bass frequency directly toward that neural network. The order is not verbal. The order is the darkest and most gelid aseptic indifference in the universe. Imagine injecting liquid platinum into that synapse. By crashing your hyperdensity against the thought of fear, you do not fight it. Fighting generates heat and feeds it. You simply withdraw, abruptly, the supply of your vital attention. You look at it with the absolute contempt of a god observing a dying insect. You order its death by starvation. You disconnect the cable. Without the oxygen of your recognition, the neural structure has no choice but to initiate its own dissolution. You are the conductor of this silent massacre, watching as the old architecture of the slave is systematically dismantled by the cold light of your intent. The agony of the parasite, the ego screams. In the millisecond you cut the power supply and activate apoptosis, the defective cell will enter panic. Prepare for the internal attack. The biological ego knows it is about to be annihilated. The neural networks that kept you human and submissive will begin to fire hysterical alarms in your brain. You will hear the parasite's screams echoing in your skull. You're becoming a monster. You'll be completely alone. If you don't worry about anything, you'll lose everything. People will hate you for being so cold. Endure the suffocation. This is the purifying fire. The human biomass yields at this exact point. When they feel the agony of the dying ego, they confuse that pain with real damage, get scared, retreat, stop the apoptosis, and re-inject blood into the tumor to calm the pain. They prefer the comfort of disease to the brutality of the cure. They choose the warm rot of the herd over the cold throne of the singularity. But you are tied to the obsidian table by your own geometric will. Imagine observing the death throes of your old identity without moving a single muscle. Feel how the terror of loneliness screams and then dies out. Feel how the need for validation writhes and then fragments into useless pieces. Feel how the anxiety for the future bleeds until it is dry. Do not intervene. Do not take pity. Let the acid of your indifference dissolve the cellular structures until they are reduced to quantum dust. You must enjoy this aseptic execution. Every cell of fear that commits suicide is 1,000,000 volts returning to your reactor. The three-dimensional withdrawal syndrome. Extermination is not free. During the hours or days following the execution of this protocol, you will experience the three-dimensional withdrawal syndrome. Your physical body, addicted to the chemistry of drama, worry, and kinetic effort, will demand its dose of cortisol. You will feel a terrifying void in your chest. You will feel a gelid apathy. Food will not taste the same. Banal conversations with the biomass will seem like unbearable torture. The places you used to frequent will generate a physical repulsion. Imagine walking through the ashboard in this state of quantum convalescence. You are surrounded by humans. They laugh at stupidities, get angry at news, or stress over debts. And you feel absolutely nothing. Your nervous system has been sterilized. Your biological mind will try to convince you that you are depressed, that you have lost your spark or your humanity. False. You are not depressed, you are sterilized. You have reached the perfect conductivity of 0 ohms. The void you feel is not lack. It is the immense, pristine, and hyperdense space you just cleared by burning the trash. You are experiencing the absolute and lethal loneliness of the apex predator. The lion does not get depressed because sheep games don't amuse him. The lion simply breathes the silence of his own majesty. You are now a stranger in the world of the mammals, an entity that has replaced biological reaction with mathematical precision. This void is the evidence that the old hardware has been deleted. Do not try to fill it with new junk. Let the silence solidify. Holographic excretion. The environment collapses. Apoptosis is not limited to the inside of your skull. As within, so without. In the mechanics of the unified field, your 3D environment is just the extension of your neural network. When you annihilate weak cells in your brain, the physical structures that corresponded to those cells in your reality must collapse. Prepare for holographic excretion. When you order the death of your need for validation and toxic empathy, you will observe a relentless physical phenomenon. The ashboard will begin to purge the human parasites from your life. Old friends will stop calling you. Business contacts vibrating in scarcity will cancel. They will cancel meetings abruptly. Mediocre employees will quit without explanation. Family relationships sustained by guilt will fracture overnight. The human biomass, faced with this crumbling of their environment, would panic and try to hold on to people, calling them to fix things or asking for forgiveness. If you do that, you are re-ingesting the tumor your system just vomited. Imagine observing the collapse of your old social and corporate environment from the throne of immobility. Do not lift a single finger to stop anyone. Celebrate the silence as the room empties. It is the sound of your freedom being rendered. Each person or structure that disappears during voluntary apoptosis is a cellular corpse the universe is removing from your ecosystem. It is empirical proof that the sub-base frequency is working. Let the trash take itself out. Your new world will only be inhabited by those who can withstand your new density. The birth of the hyperdense tissue. Look at yourself on the operating table at the end of the protocol. The carnage has concluded. You have ordered and witnessed the mass suicide of your own weak humanity. You have extirpated fear, hope, attachment, and the need for approval. You are no longer a chaotic set of traumas and contradictory desires. Your electromagnetic anatomy is now a perfect obsidian crystal, without fissures, without soft tissue. You are an aseptic machine, designed exclusively to collapse probability waves on the ashboard with 0 friction. You are the hard code of the monarch. Your reactor is now clean of the soot of the herd. By having eliminated the cells that consumed your voltage in fear, the energy available in your central reactor has increased astronomically. Feel the density in your core. Feel how dark matter seethes in your quantum arteries. You are ready to absorb loads of power that would destroy an ordinary human in milliseconds. The second cellular threshold has been surpassed. You have executed voluntary apoptosis and sterilized the organism. But the eradication of the defect is only the preparation of the land. Now that the field is empty, you must subject your new anatomy to the direct radiation of dark matter. You must force the mutation. Chapter 3. Vacuum Radiation, Exposure Chamber. The crater of purged flesh, structural space. Voluntary apoptosis has concluded. The suicide of weak cells has left your electromagnetic anatomy devastated, purged, and aseptic. You find yourself lying on the operating table of your own consciousness, breathing the gelid air of the quantum theater. Where fear, toxic empathy, and parasitic hope once dwelt, there is now nothing. You have created an immense crater in the center of your chest, an absolute vacuum. Mammalian biology and Newtonian physics abhor a vacuum. If you leave this structural space open without injecting a superior mass, the 3D ashboard will rush to fill it with new junk. The matrix will send you new distractions to plug the hole. To prevent the tumor from returning, you must sterilize the crater. You must subject your purged organism to a level of thermodynamic stress so extreme that no cell of scarcity can ever germinate in your tissue again. You have to tear off the lead shields of your biological avatar and expose your source code to the field. Expose it, naked and skinned, to the direct and relentless radiation of the zero-point field. Welcome to the exposure chamber. Here there is no movement. There is no oxygen. There is only the crushing weight of cosmic dark matter colliding against your spinal cord. It is the fire that does not burn the skin, but melts the illusion. The biomass is horror vacui, the static shield. To master radiation, you must first understand why all humanity flees from it with pathological terror. Observe the biomass under the lens of aseptic indifference. They cannot stand silence. They cannot stand being alone with their own skull for 10 minutes without turning on a screen, playing music, or seeking interaction. They have horror vacui, the terror of the void. Why do they flee from silence? Because within silence dwells the radiation of the eternal now. Noise, social networks, activism, and emotional drama are not just bad habits. They are thermodynamic lead shields. The biomass uses the static of the world as thick armor. They know, at a subconscious level, that if they turn off the noise and expose themselves to the vacuum, cosmic radiation will instantly disintegrate their victim identities, their excuses, and their mediocrity. Radiation would force them to assume their omnipotence, and for a slave, nothing is more terrifying than that. There is nothing more terrifying than being the sole responsible party for their empire. They prefer to live sick, rusted, and poor, but wrapped in the warm and noisy blanket of society, rather than stripping naked before the aseptic cold of the singularity. You no longer have that shield. You are raw. Radiation is about to hit. The physics of the exposure chamber, the hyperdense ocean. Three-dimensional ignorance defines vacuum as the absence of things, as a hollow and dead space. That is the lie of the biological senses. In high-frequency quantum mechanics, the absolute vacuum is the state of highest energy density in the universe. If you remove all light and matter, what remains is not nothing. What remains is a boiling pot of quantum fluctuations, an ocean of dark matter containing enough voltage to boil all the oceans on Earth. The vacuum is not empty, it is bursting with pure, unmanifested potential. When you lock yourself in total silence, you are not entering nothingness, you are in a reactor. You are immersing your fragile neural network into the core of a cosmic nuclear reactor. You are exposing your DNA double helix to the shockwave of the Big Bang, frozen in the current millisecond. The quantum operator does not meditate to relax. Relaxation is for corpses. The operator immobilizes to be irradiated. He uses absolute silence as a particle accelerator to force the mutation of his chromosomes. In this chamber, the lack of external stimuli forces the system to look inward with such pressure that the barrier between the observer and the source dissolves. You are becoming the energy you previously feared to face. Tearing the membrane, the immersion protocol. How is exposure executed on the ashboard? It requires a discipline bordering on psychopathy. Imagine turning off all the servers of the physical world. You turn off your phone. You cut contact with the biomass. You sit in a room in absolute gloom. You immobilize yourself completely, activating corporal Wu Wei. The order is strict. Not a single muscle can generate friction. Your body demands stimuli. Your mammalian brain, terrified by sensory deprivation, will begin to generate auditory hallucinations, itchy skin, and anxiety about the future. It is the biological parasite trying to rebuild the lead shield of distraction. Ignore it. Breathe with gelid slowness. You are an obsidian monolith. Imagine that the walls of your room disappear. You are floating in the center of deep space, surrounded by the absolute black of the universe. There is no one else. No God to judge you, no society to applaud you. You are infinitely alone. Open the membrane of your auric field. Execute the absorption command. Feel the collision. The zero-point radiation, hyperdense and gelid, penetrates your holographic epidermis at the speed of light. It is not a warm, healing light, it is a gamma ray of mathematical indifference. It nests in your spine. The collapse of reason, the vertigo of immensity. In the first minutes of exposure, the radioactive stress on your nervous system will be catastrophic. Your linear intellect, that small rusted abacus the biomass uses to calculate its future, cannot process the voltage of infinity. When the dark matter of the vacuum floods your brain, 3D logic fractures. You will experience unbearable vertigo, as if falling upward. The illusion of the I, your name, your bank account, your corporate titles, will begin to dissolve under the atomic bombardment of the now. You will feel the physical certainty that you are going mad, that you are losing control of reality. Endure the suffocation. This madness is simply the destruction of the thermal limits of your processor. It is the pain of the vessel expanding to contain the ocean. If you get up, if you open your eyes and turn on a screen to return to normalcy, you will abort the mutation. You will be half burnt. To force cellular evolution, you have to surrender to the radiation. Imagine releasing the brakes. Let the acid of the vacuum dissolve the last walls of your biological ego. Accept your own disintegration with a cruel, aseptic smile. Let the biography burn, you declare in silence. Let the monarch be born. Nuclear fusion, osmium chromosomes. As you sustain immobility in the reactor core, the vertigo disappears. Biological resistance has died of exhaustion. You have reached the point of nuclear fusion. This is where the true genetic mutation takes place. Under the uninterrupted observation of your Xeno effect, the radiation becomes you. The helices of your DNA, which you emptied during apoptosis, are now rewritten at a quantum level. Chemical base pairs are no longer assembled with weak biological carbon. They are assembled with pure geometric tension. Imagine your chromosomes mutating. Feel how they become heavy, dense, and cold. You are forging chromosomes of osmium and quantum platinum. Your nervous system transmutes into a fiber optic network capable of channeling currents of hyperpower without blinking. Your pineal gland crystallizes, becoming a sub-base transmission antenna that imposes signals onto the world. You are the source code. The information you absorb cannot be expressed in words because it is not intellectual knowledge, it is raw data. You are empirically understanding how galaxies are sustained and how capital, territory, and will interweave in the electromagnetic web. You are becoming the very fabric of the reality you govern. Radioactive silence, perfect conductivity. The process is over. You have survived the immersion. Imagine opening your physical eyes in the gloom of your room. The environment looks the same, but you have changed state. You no longer breathe air, you breathe the dark matter of the local universe. Do you feel the ballistic coldness in your chest? Anxiety cannot exist in this mutated body because anxiety requires friction and time, and you just annihilated both in the radiation chamber. You possess a perfect conductivity of 0 ohms. If a 3D problem hits you, a market crisis or an attack, the energy of that problem passes through you without resistance. It generates no emotional heat and is expelled to the vacuum instantly. You have become a thermal superconductor. But this newly acquired hyperdensity has a lethal side effect. You have become highly radioactive to the three-dimensional ecosystem. Your presence is now a disruptive force to the old world. The uranium avatar, impact on the ecosystem. As you stand and walk back to the ashboard, you are no longer an improved human being. You are an enriched uranium core walking among carbon biomass. You must understand the physical consequences. When you enter a boardroom or walk the street, your field will emit a silent, invisible radiation. It will instantly alter the inferior organisms around you. The human biomass, with its DNA based on fear, will feel your presence before you say a word. They will feel the weight of your immobility. The radiation of your ballistic certainty will clash against the fragile shields of their egos. Some, the most intuitive and docile, will feel immediately attracted to your gravity, submitting to your corporate leadership and offering their loyalty. Others, the arrogant slaves and false leaders, will feel terrified and threatened by your aseptic silence. They will attack you, seeking to make you react. They desperately want you to react with emotion to confirm you are still one of them. Look at them with the clinical contempt of a monarch toward an insect. Do not lower the voltage to make them comfortable. Let them burn. If they cannot stand your sub-bass frequency, let the universe expel them. Expulsion from the engine room. Look at yourself. You have assimilated the exposure chamber. You eradicated the genetics of mediocrity in the first threshold. You ordered the cellular suicide of your weaknesses in the second, and now, in the third, you have crystallized your anatomy into an unattackable superconductor. You are already the naked creator. You have the structure of a geometric predator, but an inert structure, however dense, needs operative orders. The hardware has been updated, but now you must learn to use this new keyboard to hack the exterior simulation. Your sub-base is now a calibrated tool of command. Chapter 4. Ballistic Epigenetics, the chisel of the sub-base frequency. You possess the architecture of a biological superconductor, but the hyper-dense energy now flowing through your veins needs a vector, a direction, an architectural design. A nuclear reactor without a control panel is just a bomb about to explode. It is the millisecond to reclaim the command console. The science of the biomass, that stunted fraction of knowledge humanity uses to justify its mediocrity, has recently discovered epigenetics. They have proven, with their primitive microscopes, that DNA is not an unmovable destiny. They have discovered that genes have switches. The environment, perception, stress, and internal chemistry can turn entire genetic sequences on or off without altering the double helix. This is the key to biological omnipotence. And what does the human biomass do with this divine key? They hand it over to the enemy. Look at them on the ashboard. Observe how they have hijacked their own control panel. The slave wakes up in the morning, turns on 3D news, observes economic charts in red, and listens to statistics of inflation, pandemics, and scarcity. His mammalian brain, terrified, processes that holographic environment as a mortal threat. His nervous system secretes torrents of cortisol and adrenaline. What occurs at an epigenetic level? The biomass uses a television screen and society's opinion to turn off the genes for longevity, regeneration, and creativity, and turn on the genes for chronic stress, premature aging, and submission. They are committing daily epigenetic suicide. They have surrendered the access codes of their own biology to corporations, politicians, and collective terror. They are organisms remote-controlled by external chaos. You must reclaim the manual control of your own biological switches to stop this thermal leak. Ballistic epigenetics, the weapon of mutation. The quantum operator repudiates this surrender with geometric disgust. You are not here for the ashboard to dictate how your cells should behave. The environment does not mold you. You are the chisel that fractures and reprograms the environment. We call this science of attack ballistic epigenetics. It is not the positive thinking of false spirituality. Thinking good things is an intellectual, gaseous, and light activity that floats on the surface of the cerebral cortex and lacks the gravitational mass necessary to penetrate the cell nucleus. Positive thinking is useless against the inertia of the genome. Ballistic epigenetics is a direct kinetic attack against the genome. It is the thermodynamic imposition of a state of being upon physical matter, using a frequency so dense, so crushing, and so cold that biology has no choice but to obey and mutate in real time. You are dictating the new molecular law. To execute this attack, you cannot use the voice of your analytical mind. The analytical mind doubts, calculates risks, and fears failure. You must descend to the engine room and wield the Creator's most lethal weapon, the sub-base frequency. This is the pulse that rewrites the hardware of your existence, the chisel of the sub-bass frequency, the acoustics of power. To understand this tool, you must abandon the idea of sound as something heard with physical ears. The sub-bass frequency is an electromagnetic oscillation born in the point zero of your chest. It expands through your nervous system like a shockwave of liquid lead. It is felt in the marrow of your bones. Imagine yourself in front of an industrial subwoofer the size of a building. When it emits a frequency below 20 Hz, you do not hear the note. You suffer it. You feel your ribs vibrate, the air becomes dense, the pressure alters your internal organs. It is a massive presence that displaces all oxygen. That is the vibratory attitude of the monarch of the instant. When the quantum operator wants to turn on the genes for territorial domination, physical immunity, or financial gravity, he does not wish for it to happen. He does not pray. He does not plead. He generates the sub-bass frequency in his core. Imagine closing your eyes. Disconnect your attention from the outer hologram. Anchor your consciousness in the center of your chest. Now, summon the state of absolute ballistic certainty. You are the owner of the ecosystem. You are invulnerable. You have the total monopoly of capital and territory. Feel how that state is not a thought, but a physical pressure. A dark, slow, heavy, and unmovable vibration that begins to throb in your spinal cord. That is the chisel. You are sharpening the obsidian tool with which you are going to carve your own DNA. The biology of the slave cannot resist this weight. Hijacking the console, voluntary methylation. With the chisel vibrating in your quantum hands, it is the moment to execute the programming. In the biology of slaves, methylation is the chemical process by which small molecules attach to DNA to silence specific genes. It is a blind and unconscious process. You are going to perform a voluntary methylation. Directed by the laser of your attention, maintain the sub-bass frequency. Feel the hyperdensity in your bones. Now, emit the cellular directive. Direct the weight of that vibration toward the nucleus of your cells. Order the activation. Activate architecture of perfect regeneration. Activate genome of apex predator. Activate zero-ohm conductivity. Observe, from aseptic indifference, how the pressure of your certainty breaks the chemical locks of your own chromosomes. You are forcing the wet matter of your biology to resonate in the same octave of your spiritual omnipotence. The genes you inherited from your frightened ancestors, those codes of scarcity and submission that you failed to burn in radiation, are now physically crushed by the shockwave of your internal dictatorship. You are sculpting the hyper-lethal species, not in millions of years, in this exact nanosecond. Geometric tension, the subjugation of the body. The biological body, accustomed to being governed by fear, will resist this massive intrusion. When you inject the sub-bass frequency of absolute dominance, you will experience geometric tension. It is the agonizing friction that occurs when you try to stuff a cosmic god into a simian meat suit. Your muscles may tremble, your breath may become heavy, your brain, detecting an astronomical demand for energy it was not designed for, will send panic signals. It will beg you to stop the chisel, to return to the mediocre and safe frequency of the herd. You must remain unshakable. Suffocate the biological body. Do not yield a single millimeter of pressure. Geometric tension is the hammer hitting the chisel. If you withdraw the tool just when it hurts, the stone of the DNA does not break and the mutation is aborted. You have to hold the frequency until the body's resistance breaks. You must impose your geometric will until your cells understand, with reverent terror, that the dictator is no longer the news or family heritage. The dictator is the singularity inhabiting the cortex. Imagine holding the vibration for 15 minutes of holographic time. Eventually the body yields. The trembling ceases. The cells accept the new base frequency. A terrifying, cold, and lethal peace floods your organism. You have just reprogrammed the console. You are now a biological machine calibrated for supremacy, and the old software of the slave has been permanently overwritten by the new code. Immunity to the holographic signal, biological blindness. The litmus test of ballistic epigenetics does not occur in the comfort of solitary meditation. It is proven in the crossfire of the ash board. Imagine leaving your state of reprogramming and facing the 3D hologram. The stock market collapses. A corporate ally betrays you. The biomass panics. They throw their fear radiation directly at your face. The mutated quantum operator operates here with biological blindness. Your visual and auditory system registers the chaos, but thanks to your new epigenetic state, that information is categorized by your biology as irrelevant static. Your amygdala does not light up. Your adrenal gland does not secrete cortisol. The human biomass looks at you terrified and asks, "Why aren't you scared? Why don't you react? Don't you see what is happening?" You look at them with a gelid and indecipherable smile. They are reading an old barcode. Your biology no longer processes the code of fear because you just ripped those switches from the console. The 3D chaos hits your auric field and slides off like water on Teflon. You are holding the sub-base frequency of financial gravity while the world burns. You are the eye of the storm. By refusing to alter your internal chemistry in response to the exterior, you break the chain of cause and effect. You prove to the Matrix that its power over you is an illusion. The Matrix, seeing its chaos, cannot extract a single ohm of friction, suffocates and is forced to reorder the electrons. Contempt for medical statistics. At this level of mutation, the quantum operator must execute an act of supreme arrogance, the absolute repudiation of humanity's medical and biological statistics. Slave science publishes constant studies on aging, genetic diseases, and the inevitable decay of the body. They claim you must decay. They claim that at a certain age, your metabolism must collapse and your brain must atrophy. Those statistics only measure organisms living under the tyranny of stress, linear time, and the genetics of fear. They are measuring the behavior of carbon, not diamond. You are no longer in that category. If you, the monarch of the instant, read a medical diagnosis or a biological statistic and accept it as your truth, you are programming your epigenetics to fulfill that pathetic prophecy. The chisel of the sub-bass frequency annihilates the statistic. You are an outlier in the 3D simulation. Imagine declaring sovereignty over your own telomeres. You will not age at the pace of the herd because you do not suffer the thermal wear of emotional friction. Your cells do not oxidize because they operate in the gelid liquid of the quantum Zeno effect. You claim temporary telomeric immortality. The sculptor of flesh and gold. Look at yourself. You have taken the command console. You have ceased to be the evolutionary accident, the victim of your genes, or the voodoo doll of the external environment. You have understood that biology is simply another manifestation of conscious matter, as submissive as financial capital. Through ballistic epigenetics, you have wielded the chisel of the sub-bass frequency. You have hijacked your own molecular switches, turning off the victim and turning on the absolute monarch. You have forced the flesh to resonate with the spirit. Your body is now a particle accelerator. The physical body is no longer a prison. It has transmuted into a hyperdensity suit designed specifically to withstand the voltage of the singularity without melting. But this internal mutation is so aggressive, so heavy, and so absolute that the hologram surrounding you will begin to reject you. People, cities, and systems that tolerated your old weak version will not bear the friction of coexisting with your new frequency. The space around you will begin to crack. The fifth door is visible. It is the door of spatial displacement. Prepare to witness the collapse of your old world. Chapter 5. Organ rejection, expelling the toxic environment. Tissue incompatibility, the clash of densities. Your biology no longer processes fear, and your nervous system operates with the gelid coldness of a stabilized nuclear reactor. But the internal mutation unleashes an immediate thermodynamic crisis on the outside. In the medicine of the biomass, when a foreign organ is transplanted, the immune system attacks it. This is called organ rejection. In your state of hyperdensity, the process is reversed with a terrifying brutality. It is not your body rejecting a new organ, it is your new quantum body violently rejecting the old environment. The 3D environment surrounding you, your social circle and friends, was built by your weak version. That environment was designed to fit an organism vibrating in scarcity, need for validation, and fear. Now that you have mutated into osmium and platinum, that cheap carbon environment is thermodynamically incompatible with your epidermis. It is a necrotic, purulent organ sewn to a perfect body. Quantum physics does not tolerate dissonance. Electromagnetic nausea, the symptom of expulsion. You will not realize this incompatibility through logical analysis. Mutation is not intellectual, it is cellular. The warning will arrive through an uncontrollable physical repulsion. Electromagnetic nausea will arrive. Imagine sitting at a dinner with your old tribe or a meeting with former partners. A week ago, these interactions seemed normal. Today, holding the sub-bass frequency in your chest, you will observe the scene and feel you are suffocating. You will hear the biomass complain about the economy. You will see them gossip about other mediocre mammals. You will hear them justify their lack of results. Suddenly, your new nervous system will enter shock. You will feel crushing pressure in your skull, a sudden fatigue that drains the color from your face, a feeling of disgust so deep that your cells will scream for oxygen. Your mutated biology is detecting the static of poverty and defeat emanating from their auric fields. For a zero-friction quantum operator, breathing the air of a room full of frightened slaves is the equivalent of inhaling mustard gas. It is not psychological pride, it is pure quantum acoustics. Your frequencies are colliding. The rotten organ is poisoning your blood, and your immune system demands immediate amputation. The effective responsibility fraud, murdering guilt. Here is where the Matrix will try to stop the extirpation by injecting the most insidious poison of modern society. Guilt disguised as empathy and effective responsibility. The herd therapist culture demands that you talk things out or give closure. They tell you to sit with toxic people to avoid hurting them. They say you must remember that you were once like them. Annihilate that weakness this exact millisecond. Does a surgeon wake up the tumor mid-operation to apologize before cutting it? Does the lion apologize to the gazelle for evolving sharper claws? Affective responsibility is a concept invented by emotional parasites. It is designed to force superior organisms to keep financing their misery. If you explain your mutation to the biomass, you are committing a lethal thermodynamic error. You are using the language of gods to try to convince insects. They will not understand. They will perceive it as arrogance. They will inject their poison. The monarch of the instant gives no explanations to shadows. You owe no apology for refusing to consume poison. Your only biological and electromagnetic loyalty is to the singularity inhabiting your spinal cord. Everything else is expendable material. You are a sovereign entity, and your frequency is your only law. The silent guillotine, extirpation without anesthesia. How is organ rejection executed on the ashboard? With the silent guillotine, with aseptic indifference raised to its maximum holographic destruction capacity. There are no dramatic discussions. There are no goodbye messages. There are no angry blocks on social media because anger requires friction. Friction proves the other still has power over your nervous system. The extirpation must be gelid, fluid, and absolute. Imagine yourself in front of that partner or relative who drains your voltage. Simply, you stop resonating. When they seek you to complain, you offer the silence of a lead wall. You do not discuss their arguments. You ignore them with the sovereign boredom of one listening to rain hit the glass. Finding no feedback or the emotional friction they need to feed on your energy, the parasite suffocates. If you offer a zero-ohm inert vacuum, they will let go by their own weight. Your immobility expels them from the ecosystem without you moving a single muscle. You disappear from their timelines like a nuclear submarine diving below the thermal layer, becoming invisible to their 3D radars. You are no longer a coordinate they can track, for you have changed the very nature of your signature. The siege of parasites, the host reaction. But be careful. Necrotic tissue does not always detach in silence. Some parasites are so deeply entwined in your old structures that, sensing the amputation, they will react with holographic violence. When the biomass understands they can no longer use you, they will attack. They will try to defame you. They will say you have become cold and ruthless. They will remind you of past failures, that dead identity you burned in radiation, to pull you back to their level of mud. They will use family guilt and social pressure to try to pierce your Faraday cage. Observe this attack without blinking. It is not a crisis. It is the last muscle spasm of the dying organ. If you feel the temptation to defend yourself, stop breathing. Defending yourself is validating their existence. It is getting off the obsidian throne to fight in the mud with pigs. Keep the sub-bass frequency driven into your core. Let them scream. The hatred of the biomass is the most beautiful empirical confirmation that your mutation is an absolute success. Their hatred is the sound of the hologram fracturing before your new gravitational mass. They are reacting to a power they can no longer parasitize, and their noise is their surrender. Geometric exile, emptying the board. As you hold the scalpel and reject incompatible organs, you will observe your ashboard emptying at a terrifying speed. Your phone book will be reduced to ashes. Friday night gatherings will disappear. Messaging groups will fall silent. And not just people. Physical places and mediocre offices will expel you. You will reach geometric exile, a state of almost absolute isolation in the physical world. The biological ego is terrified in this phase. The gregarious mammal panics seeing itself alone, without a herd, surrounded by immense empty space. It will whisper that you have gone too far and that you are a pariah. Suffocate that voice with hyperdensity. This isolation is not weakness, it is the asepsis of the operating room. A nuclear reactor is not built in the middle of a crowded market. It is built in the absolute isolation of an underground titanium bunker. You need this vacuum desperately to match the quantum crater. You cannot introduce new blood if the veins are clogged with the cholesterol of your social past. This exile is the necessary silence before the symphony of your empire begins. You are a singularity, and a singularity by definition occupies a point where no one else can exist. Embrace the gelid majesty of the void, the law of generative vacuum, invoking conscious matter. And here is where the quantum operator executes the superior mathematics of the universe. The law of the vacuum dictates that the unified field does not tolerate blank spaces. If you create a massive vacuum by extirpating your toxic environment and hold it without fear, the universe enters thermodynamic panic. The universe is forced to refill that space. But it can only fill it with conscious matter, vibrating at the exact same frequency of the vessel. Since you have mutated and are vibrating in the sub-base frequency of invulnerability, the new environment will be of an astronomical voltage. Imagine the collapse. By purging parasites, you leave the vacancy free. In a matter of quantum weeks, synchronicity fires. You meet hyperdense individuals operating in your same octave of aseptic psychopathy. You close alliances with lethal operators who negotiate without friction. Capital finds space to flow. You have amputated a tumor of rotten flesh, and the universe has transplanted a titanium exoskeleton armed with financial and territorial weaponry. The space you cleared is now the stage for a higher order of existence, one that recognizes your sovereignty and serves your geometric purpose without question. The predator in his own ecosystem. Look at yourself in the center of your new architecture. You survived the extirpation. You did not tremble when the blood of your old life splashed the walls of the ashboard. You did not look back when shadows insulted you. You have emptied the holographic vessel with the cruelty of a geometric god. The nausea has disappeared. The environment now rendering around you is pristine, cold, and lethal. You are surrounded only by structures and allies that can withstand your atmospheric pressure. But the siege is not over. The global matrix remains a storm of collective hysteria. There will be crises. Your mutation is pure, but it needs a definitive shield against the radiation of world fear. The next step on the operating table does not require the scalpel, it requires forging the osmium shield. Prepare for adaptive immunity. You have cleared the room, now you must harden the very walls of your being. The crystallization of the new social order. As the old connections wither and fall away, you must observe the new ones with the same coldness. Do not rush to fill the void with new faces out of a lingering biological need for company. The new social order of a quantum operator is not based on friendship or kinship, but on functional resonance. Every entity that enters your field now must pass a rigorous thermodynamic screening. Do they add voltage to your system, or do they seek to drain it? Do they understand the language of the vacuum, or do they bring the noise of the matrix with them? You are the gatekeeper of your own frequency. Imagine your social landscape as a crystalline lattice. Each point is a node of high power. There is no room for the soft, the undecided, or the entropic. Your new allies are not there to support you in the human sense, but to reinforce the geometric structure of the empire you are building. This level of selectivity will make you a ghost to the 99%. They will see you from afar and sense an invisible barrier. They will no longer try to approach because your very presence causes them a microscopic version of the nausea you once felt. You have become an apex predator in a new, sterilized dimension. The thermodynamics of the monarch's silence. Your silence is now your most potent weapon. In the old world, you used words to defend, explain, and belong. In the new world, your silence is a pressurized containment field. Every time you refuse to engage in a mediocre conversation, you are saving hundreds of thousands of volts for your next collapse. The biomass interprets silence as a void to be filled with their own noise. You must interpret your silence as a solid wall. When the world screams at you, your silence is the answer that unbalances them. It is the proof that you are no longer playing their game of action and reaction. By maintaining this gelid silence, you force the environment to reveal its true nature. The desperate will reveal their desperation. The greedy will reveal their greed. You simply observe, moving through the ashboard with the indifferentia aseptica of a machine. You are the only one not leaking energy. This silence is the forge where your osmium shield is being tempered. It is the absence of outward friction that allows your internal density to reach the levels required for absolute sovereignty. You are the master of the unspoken, the architect of the invisible, and the pilot of the quiet storm. The final severance of temporal ties. The rejection of organs extends to your own past. You must stop identifying with the person who used to know those people or used to live in those places. That person is a cellular corpse. To keep the memory of those ties alive is to keep a necrotic link in your system. Execute the final severance. Every memory of the old environment must be treated as a low-resolution file from a deleted operating system. If you catch yourself reminiscing, apply the sub-base frequency to that neural path until it burns out. You are a new species. You have no history with the biomass. This total detachment gives you the ultimate tactical advantage. You are unpredictable. The Matrix cannot use your past relationships to manipulate you because you no longer recognize those relationships as valid. You are a clean slate of obsidian, reflecting nothing and absorbing all light. The transition is nearly complete. You have moved from the chaos of the herd to the cold precision of the singularity. Your internal and external worlds are now aligned. The air you breathe is thin and sharp, exactly as it should be for a creature of your magnitude. Advance to the final hardening. The hardening of the quantum epidermis. The vacuum is occupied, the parasites are gone, and the silence is absolute. Now, you must turn your attention to the very boundary where you meet the world. Your skin must become as hard as the obsidian table you lay upon. This is not about closing yourself off, but about becoming selective at a molecular level. Adaptive immunity is the ability to walk through the fire of global hysteria and use that heat to further temper your own shield. You will no longer just reject the toxic. You will use the energy of the world's chaos to strengthen your own order. Every crisis will be fuel for your furnace. Forge the osmium shield. It is the final layer of your biological mutation. It is the membrane that allows you to interact with the 3D world without ever being of it. You are the virus to the Matrix, and your immunity is the death of the simulation's control over you. Move to the next protocol. The operating room is ready for the final hardening. The light is blinding. The vacuum is heavy. Your heart beats with the rhythm of the source code. You are ready to become the invulnerable titan of the ashboard. The chapter of immunity is here. Take your place in the fire. Chapter 6. Adaptive Immunity, the Biological Faraday Cage. In ancient esotericism, the collective mind was called egregore, an immense cloud of energy generated by the thoughts and emotions of millions of people. Analyze this phenomenon with the aseptic indifference of particle physics. When a macroeconomic crisis, a pandemic or war breaks out, the human biomass synchronizes its terror. Millions of mammalian brains begin to vibrate at the sub-base frequency of panic, survival instinct, and scarcity. That collective frequency becomes atmospheric radiation. It is an environmental infection. Imagine standing in the center of a metropolis. You do not need to speak to anyone to feel the heaviness in the air. The static of global fear tries to penetrate through your holographic pores. If you allow a single wave of that collective panic to enter your quantum bloodstream, your mutation risks a structural failure. If your nervous system reads the world's fear and reacts to it, you will turn the slave genes back on. You must be impenetrable. To survive as a hyper-lethal organism in an ecosystem vibrating in chronic panic, sterilization is not enough. You need absolute shielding. You need to forge the biological Faraday cage. You are a singularity that cannot be contaminated by the entropic noise of the herd. The matrix seeks to infect you. The cage ensures its failure. Anatomy of the Faraday cage, the zero-ohm shielding. In electromagnetic science, a Faraday cage is a metallic box designed to protect what is inside from external electric fields. When a high-voltage lightning bolt hits the cage, the conductive mesh absorbs the impact and distributes the energy across its surface, completely cancelling the field inside. You do not suffer a single spark. The object or person inside the cage does not suffer even a spark. They are not even aware of the violence of the external storm. The quantum operator must build this same architecture at a biological level. Your auric field, that sphere of radiation emanating from your central reactor, must stop being an emotional sponge. It must transmute into a mesh of titanium and hyper-dense osmium. How is this shield forged? It is not done by raising walls of defensiveness, because being defensive implies fear of attack. It is forged through perfect conductivity, the state of 0 ohms. You become a superconductor that the external signal cannot grip. Imagine the matrix's hysteria is a 10 million volt lightning bolt. The biomass receives the bolt, and because they are full of friction, doubts, opinions, political beliefs, empathy, the bolt fries them inside. They generate residual heat. You instead will invoke the vacuum. When the bolt hits, you will not resist it. You will allow the energy to slide across the surface of your aseptic indifference, diverting that useless static directly toward the Earth, toward point zero, without it touching a single millimeter of your internal neural network. Inside your skull, the silence will remain absolute, gelid, and dictatorial. You are the I, suffocating the amygdala, chemical control of cortisol. For the biological Faraday cage to be impenetrable, you must take manual control of your own brain's chemical factory, the amygdala. The amygdala is the smoke alarm of biological evolution. It is designed to trigger cortisol and adrenaline at the slightest perception of threat, preparing the mammal to run or fight. The 3D matrix bombards your amygdala 24 hours a day with emergency stimuli to keep you in survival mode. It is the millisecond to apply the ballistic chisel upon your own center of terror. Imagine receiving catastrophic news regarding the business board. A market you monopolized has just crumbled. The amygdala detects the information and tries to open the cortisol valves to flood your chest with anxiety. Execute the interruption protocol. Do not try to calm yourself by talking to the anxiety. That is slow and humiliating. Imagine applying a titanium clamp around the adrenal gland. Close the valve with violence. Force your heart rate to descend to 50 beats per minute by pure geometric imposition. Inhale lead. Exhale vacuum. Observe the catastrophic news floating in front of you. Detach it from its emotional charge. It is just electrons changing position on a distant server. It is dead information. You remain unshakable. By refusing to secrete the chemistry of fear, you are teaching your biology that the collapse of the 3D world is not a threat to the creator, but simply a rearrangement of furniture in your playroom. You have just coated your nervous system with an impregnable thermal layer. You are the master of your internal laboratory. The fraud of the informed citizen, the vacuum diet. The Faraday cage cannot be sustained if you keep the system's back doors open. The most aggressive infection vector of the global egregore is not physical contact. It is information. The biomass suffers from informed slave syndrome. They pride themselves on reading the news and debating foreign policy. They believe possessing data on chaos makes them intellectually superior. Repudiate this stupidity with quantum arrogance. To be informed on the ashboard is to subject your cerebral cortex to systematic violation. News and algorithms do not transmit truths. They transmit low-vibration programming codes. They are designed to weaken your gravity. Every tragedy you consume, every useless debate you hear, is a micro-hole you drill into your Faraday cage. To maintain adaptive immunity, You have to impose the vacuum diet. Imagine closing all external reception gates. Uninstall the need to have an opinion. The quantum operator does not have an opinion. The quantum operator executes. If a war breaks out or a virus sweeps the economy, your only response must be a gelid silence. You do not donate your attention to the problem, because where you put your attention, you put the weight of your hyperdensity. You will not finance the Matrix's tragedy with your own blood. Your tactical blindness must be unshakable. See yourself crossing the city, surrounded by screens screaming the end of the world, and observe them with the same boredom you would observe mold growing on a wall. You are blind to the drama, to immunity in the crossfire, walking through hell. The true test of the titanium shield occurs when crossfire reaches your physical coordinates. Imagine being in the midst of the worst crisis in your corporate sector. You enter a boardroom. The air is dense, saturated with the emotional perspiration of your partners and employees. They are losing millions. They scream, pull their hair, look for culprits, and project bankruptcy. The thermodynamic temperature of the room is at the boiling point. If you were biomass, you would enter the room and the heat would melt you. You would join the hysteria to demonstrate leadership or empathy. But you are the cage. Imagine crossing the threshold of that room. You walk with the lethal heaviness of a nuclear battleship. Your breathing is imperceptible. You sit at the head of the table. They all look at you, waiting for you to react, waiting for the order to run or surrender. You say nothing. You look through your shield. Feel the black magic of this immobility. The room's hysteria hits the invisible barrier of your electromagnetic field and disintegrates. They try to launch their panic darts. The words hit the conductive mesh of your cage and fall dead to the floor. You absorb nothing. You remain a cold singularity. On the contrary, your absolute cold begins to suffocate the room's heat. Collective panic cannot survive in the presence of a black hole that refuses to feed it. In a few minutes, the entire room falls silent, forced to submit to your low entropy. You have walked through hell and not burned your souls. The ballistic reflex, the matrix exhausts itself. Adaptive immunity holds a final mechanism, a passive weapon of mass destruction, the ballistic reflex. When you consolidate your Faraday cage at the level of zero friction, you discover the matrix is a closed system of energy. If the matrix sends a direct attack, a malicious competitor or a crisis, if that attack hits your shield without finding any internal resistance, no anger, no fear, no doubt, the attack's energy cannot enter. And where does that energy go? It bounces. In wave physics, when a pulse hits an immovable limit of infinite impedance, the wave reflects directly back toward its source. Imagine watching your 3D enemies destroy themselves. They invest immense amounts of capital and kinetic sweat to bring down your empire. You stay on your throne, unmovable. The attack hits your holographic armor and by thermodynamic law bounces back with the exact same violence toward the sender. You will see competitors break by their own errors, devoured by the monster they tried to launch at you. You will see the biomass that tried to defame you sink into ostracism. And you will not have lifted a single finger. You have not spent a single volt. The universe grinds those who spit at singularity, the unattackable organism. Look at yourself at the center of the 3D ecosystem. The world crumbles, economies collapse, biological and psychological viruses sweep through humanity, and the Matrix's egregores howl, demanding submission. But you have become deaf, blind, and thermodynamically mute. You have forged the cage. Your amygdala has been subjected to the dictatorship of your will. Your information diet is a sterile vacuum. You have shown you can sit at the epicenter of world destruction without a single drop of cold sweat altering your chemistry. You are the unattackable organism. The infection cannot penetrate. However, the shield is only a measure of containment. You cannot limit yourself to surviving chaos by repelling it. That is a defensive strategy, and the quantum operator is a supreme predator. Mutation does not demand you tolerate poison. It demands you feed on it. The next step is transmutation. You must learn to absorb the very energy of the egregore and use it as fuel for your own expansion. The wall must become a mouth. The static must become voltage. You are ready to stop being a refuge and become a predator that consumes the fear of the world to solidify its own kingdom. The transmutation of the collective poison. A true monarch does not just resist the plague, he consumes it. When you are inside your Faraday cage, the static hitting the exterior is not wasted. You must visualize the energy of the world's panic as raw, unrefined plasma. The biomass is discharging trillions of volts of creative power into the air through fear. Instead of letting that energy dissipate or bounce back uselessly, you will open the intake valves of your reactor. You will not let the fear touch your neural core, but you will harvest the kinetic energy of the impact. Every scream of the market, every tear of the herd, becomes a charge for your batteries. Imagine the egregore as a massive storm. The cage protects you from being struck, but your 33-node antenna acts as a lightning rod. You draw the static from the atmosphere and funnel it into the point zero of your chest. You are the only one with the capacity to process this chaotic voltage into order. While the world loses its capital to panico, you are accumulating the very force that they are throwing away. The more they fear, the more powerful you become. You are a thermodynamic scavenger of the spirit, turning the lead of collective anxiety into the gold of your territorial and financial sovereignty. The sovereignty of the cold eye. In this state, your gaze changes. When you look at the biomass, you no longer see people. You see energy configurations. You see the leaks in their fields. You see the cracks in their logic. This coldness is your ultimate armor. You have transcended the human need for the warmth of the social group. You understand that warmth is just a symptom of high entropy. You prefer the gelid absolute zero of the void. This coldness allows you to make decisions that would paralyze a human. You can shut down a failing sector, terminate unproductive alliances, or pivot your entire empire in a millisecond. The 3D world calls this sociopathy. The path of knowledge calls it functional asepsis. You are a surgeon operating on the hologram. You cannot afford to let your hand tremble because you feel for the patient. The patient is the simulation, and your job is to ensure its geometry serves your will. Your Faraday cage is now a mobile command center. Everywhere you go, you carry your own atmosphere, your own laws, and your own economy. You are a walking country of one. The egregore can howl at your borders, but it can never cross them. You are the absolute governor of your own internal space. The death of the internal echo. The final layer of the Faraday cage is the silencing of the internal echo. Even with the world locked out, your mind might try to replay the old tapes of doubt or the voices of the past. These are the internal reflections of the external signal. You must apply a coating of acoustic foam to your inner temple. Whenever a thought arises that does not originate from your sub-bass frequency, treat it as a ghost signal. Do not fight it, simply refuse to provide the medium for it to travel. Without a conductor, the sound dies. You achieve a state of mental anechoic silence where only the voice of the Creator is heard. This internal silence is the ultimate proof of your mutation. You have not only shielded yourself from others, but you have shielded yourself from the human residues of your own old ego. You are now a clean room, a sterile environment where only high-frequency probability waves can collapse into matter. The 33 nodes of your spine are now glowing with a steady blue light. You are a pillar of sovereignty in a world of shifting sand. The matrix looks at you and sees a hole in its programming, a space it cannot control or predict. You have become the anomaly that breaks the simulation's rules of engagement. The mastery of the invisible weight. Your presence now carries an invisible weight. People will feel a pressure in their chests when you enter a room, not because you are threatening, but because your density is so high it curves the local space-time. This is the monarch's gravity. It is the result of your biological Faraday cage. By containing all your voltage and not letting it leak into the environment, you have become an object of immense gravitational mass. Opportunities do not just happen, they are pulled toward you. Capital does not just flow, it is sucked into your orbit. You are the fixed point that the world revolves around. You no longer have to chase the results on the ashboard. You simply stand still in your immunity and watch as the conscious matter of the universe reorganizes itself to pay tribute to your presence. The struggle has ended, because there is no longer any friction between your will and the medium. The sixth door is behind you. You have mastered the shielding. But a monarch who only defends is a statue. Now that you are invulnerable, you must learn to strike. You must learn to use the energy you have gathered to shatter the remaining illusions of the board. The chapter of the ballistic strike is next. Prepare to move from containment to conquest. Your cage is now a cockpit. You are the pilot of a divine weapon, and the 3D world is your firing range. The Frequencia subgrave is waiting to be released as a focused beam of creation and destruction. Turn the knob, step into the offensive. Chapter 7. Dark Matter Metabolism, Devouring Chaos. The biology of consumption, the slave's metabolism. You have forged the Faraday cage. You have proven you can exist at the center of collective hysteria without the biomass's static penetrating your holographic epidermis. The titanium shield repels infection. You are unattackable. But repelling an attack is a survival tactic, and survival is the consolation prize of inferior species. The monarch of the instant does not survive. He dominates. Keeping shields up requires a passive barrier, but the universe penalizes passivity. If you merely bounce the energy of chaos, you are missing the largest thermodynamic feast on the ashboard. To cross this new threshold, analyze the human metabolic mechanism. How does the biomass process problems? They use a primitive combustion metabolism. When a slave faces a macroeconomic crisis, a corporate enemy, or a massive obstacle, his physical body burns glucose. His brain consumes physical calories, trying to calculate solutions from fear. They exhaust themselves. They do not sleep. Their biological digestive system is paralyzed by stress. In the physics of weak organisms, the crisis feeds on the human. The problem is the predator, and the biomass is the prey. Every day they spend fighting chaos. They become thinner, older, more opaque. They are devoured alive by friction. They are fuel for the problem. The zero-friction furnace, altering the quantum digestive tract. The quantum operator reverses this food chain with absolute mathematical violence. You will not be consumed by the crisis. You will consume the crisis. You have to alter your digestive system at a holographic level. You will no longer feed exclusively on validation, easy success, or favorable circumstances. Easy success is baby food, a simple carbohydrate that gives a dopamine spike but generates no hyperdensity. To forge the endless empire, you must develop dark matter metabolism. Imagine turning off the reflective quality of your Faraday cage. You no longer are an osmium mirror. You transmute into an event horizon. You become the event horizon of a black hole. When the outer environment generates chaos, when the market crashes or betrayal manifests, the matrix is releasing an astronomical amount of energy. The biomass classifies this energy as negative because their weak bodies cannot process that voltage without burning. But you possess perfect conductivity. In the state of 0 ohms, negative or positive energy does not exist. Only voltage exists. And pure voltage is liquid fuel for your central reactor. Chaos is simply unrefined power, waiting for a master with enough density to swallow it and convert it into structural order. Devouring the attack, the predator's thermodynamics. How is the digestion of chaos executed in the empirical operation of your reality? Imagine the worst siege scenario in your corporate or vital ecosystem. Your competitors have launched a campaign to destroy you. A supplier has cut the chain. 3D financial pressure tries to crush your chest. Your old code screams. The old biological command would scream for you to defend yourself, to fight, to feel rage. Annihilate that reaction. Rage is quantum indigestion. Imagine yourself anchored in the gelid immobility of your obsidian throne. Observe the mass of hostile energy heading toward you. Instead of tensing, you open your mind. You open the mouth of your consciousness. You breathe. You inhale the attack. Visualize how that energy, charged with the rage of your enemies and the pressure of circumstances, penetrates your auric field. But it does not enter your nervous system. It enters directly into the fusion furnace of your core. It enters the vacuum crater you forged during radiation. Upon entering the vacuum, the attack instantly loses its hostile signature. The acid of your aseptic indifference dissolves your enemy's intentions. What remains is simply brute force, devoid of labels. You have just stolen their thermodynamic capital. Feel how the competitor's attack, instead of wounding you, nourishes you. Feel how the market crisis, instead of scaring you, injects millions of volts of dark matter into your quantum arteries. While they exhaust themselves throwing stones, you chew the stones, extract the uranium, and power your next collapse. The praise terror as liquid fuel. At the pinnacle of this metabolism, you must embrace the geometric psychopathy of the apex predator. When collective hysteria dominates the ashboard, the human biomass bleeds energy. Their terror of poverty, their anxiety for the future, and their panic before uncertainty evaporate from their bodies. It floats in the environment like a dense, toxic gas. The quantum operator breathes that gas as if it were pure oxygen. Do not judge them. Do not try to save them. And above all, do not feel pity for their wear. They have chosen to hand over their voltage to the matrix by refusing to assume sovereignty. That energy is already lost to them. If you do not take it, the global egregore will absorb it to keep fattening the simulation. Imagine walking through the center of a world financial crisis. Observe the mediocre businessmen sweating, losing their capital, closing their doors. Feel the cloud of terror. Activate the suction force of your black hole. Inhale the static. While the world howls in pain, you metabolize that pain as raw power. You feed on the entropy of the weak. You use the terror of the competition as the high-octane fuel to launch your corporations into the quantum stratosphere. You are not competing against them in the 3D market. You are using them as cheap alkaline batteries to power your own system of domination. Their loss is your direct gain in mass. The more the herd panics, the more energy is available in the air for the monarch who knows how to breathe the void. Transmuting the obstacle, chewing the lead. Dark matter metabolism also radically alters your perception of physical barriers. The Newtonian science of the slave sees a stone wall and decrees the path is blocked. The slave sits to cry or spends half a life trying to climb it. From the singularity, a wall is not an obstacle, it is a block of calories. It is a hyper-dense block of quantum calories waiting to be digested. When the hologram places an impossible barrier in your path of territorial expansion, a flat refusal, a law that stops you, do not push. Pushing is kinetic effort. Apply the digestive acid of your sub-bass frequency. Imagine enveloping the obstacle with your holographic field. You impose a constant aseptic pressure without blinking. By subjecting the 3D barrier to the uninterrupted radiation of your Zeno effect, the atomic structure of the problem begins to yield. The solid wall melts, it becomes liquid and weak, and you drink the obstacle. You assimilate the information and energy that composed that problem, and you realize the barrier contained exactly the source code you needed for your next mutation. The problem was not there to stop you. The problem was a nutritional supplement injected to increase your mass. The insatiable black hole, geometric growth. What are the side effects of this aberrant digestion? The exponential and insatiable growth of your hyperdensity. Unlike the biological stomach, which has a physical limit and vomits when saturated, the quantum furnace of point zero has no bottom. The more chaos you devour, the denser you become. And by the laws of gravitational physics, the more mass you concentrate in the singularity of your chest, the greater your field of attraction. This creates a terrifying thermodynamic vortex. By devouring a crisis, you become so immensely powerful that you attract even larger challenges and capital. The ashboard, detecting you can metabolize $10,000 problems without blinking, will throw million-dollar chaos at you. You swallow the million. Your density multiplies. The universe throws the structural pressure of an international monopoly. You open the jaws of your indifference and ingest it. You no longer seek peace. You no longer wish for life to be quiet and easy. Tranquility is the diet of cows grazing while waiting for the slaughterhouse. You desire the storm. You become addicted to the injection of dark matter. You watch the ashboard waiting for the worst crisis imaginable. You wait because you know empirically that crisis is your next injection of quantum steroids. You are the Cyclops demanding the Matrix fire all its artillery against his naked chest, only to prove he can digest uranium and spit out gold ingots. Your growth is now fueled by the very resistance of the world, the cold blood of the apex predator. Look at yourself in your new state of operation. Your biology is no longer a fragile system that needs protection from the elements. You have deactivated the survival alarm. You have altered the digestive system of your own consciousness. The biomass runs to hide when the market bleeds. You sharpen your teeth. Chaos has ceased to be a thermodynamic threat and has definitively become your food supply chain. You have devoured the crisis. You have assimilated the energy of your competitors. You have chewed the lead walls and turned them into the armor of your empire. You are the insatiable void. You are the tomb of others' fears and the furnace where the mediocrity of humanity is incinerated. But the accumulation of mass alone does not forge the endless empire. A massive black hole that does not alter its environment is just an isolated anomaly. You have the energy and the fuel. You are saturated with .0 power. Now, mutation demands that accumulated density be expelled toward the matrix to colonize the fabric of the physical world. Energy must take 3D form. Biological siege transmutes into structural expansion. Prepare for the mitosis of the empire. Advance to the cloning. Chapter 8. The mitosis of the empire. Replication on the ashboard. The false enlightenment of the ascetic. The thermodynamic failure. The quantum metabolism has stabilized your core. You are a black hole saturated with voltage, vibrating in aseptic indifference and shielded by zero-ohm conductivity. But here is where 99% of spiritual seekers commit their final suicide. They reach altered states and feel the peace of the void. They decide to live in the cave of their own minds. They believe true evolution is detaching from physical matter, renouncing wealth, and observing the world with useless passivity. They call this castration enlightenment. Analyze this heresy with the coldness of applied physics. If you have access to .0 and your bank is empty. If your will is omnipotent but your physical body dwells in territorial mediocrity, then your supposed enlightenment is a thermodynamic fraud. It is impotence disguised as virtue. The universe is not a monastery of poor monks. The universe is an engine of geometric expansion, opulence, and the collapse of mass. A quantum operator who does not materialize his hyperdensity on the 3D ashboard is like a nuclear reactor at the bottom of the ocean without cables. A useless machine that only heats the water around it. Mutation is only real when the outer matrix is forced to kneel, restructuring its atoms to build your monopoly. The mechanics of quantum mitosis, cloning the source code. In 3D biology, mitosis is the process by which a mother cell duplicates its DNA and divides into two identical daughter cells. It is the growth mechanism of any superior organism. The monarch does not grow by adding pieces of clay from the outside. He grows by dividing his own internal hyperdensity and projecting it outward. Imagine anchored in your obsidian throne. You have injected the sub-bass frequency into your own genome. You are the mother cell of your reality. Now, you must order the ballistic certainty pulsating in your spinal cord to replicate. But you will not create a cell of flesh. You will create cells of capital and territory. What is an international corporation or a million-dollar contract in the language of quantum physics? They are entities of conscious matter. They are holographic cells waiting to receive a genetic code. When you decide to colonize the market, you do not go out searching for clients with the sweat of kinetic friction. You execute mitosis. Imagine extracting an exact copy of the code of your invulnerability and injecting it violently into the center of the ashboard. That code collapses the probability wave and renders instantly as a closed deal or a physical asset. It is a literal piece of your quantum body operating in the 3D, forcing the rendering, suffocating the server. The biomass does not understand how thought transfers to solid matter because they operate under the illusion of separation. They believe they are here and success is there. The lethal operator knows the ashboard is simply a computer monitor, a low-resolution screen showing the code running in the .0 processor. To force the replication of your empire, you must saturate the processor. Imagine holding the sub-bass frequency of your territorial monopoly. You have the certainty that your corporation dominates the ecosystem. Hold that geometric tension without blinking. The 3D server will try to show you the old image of scarcity. It will show your current bank balance or market rejection. Apply aseptic indifference. Look at it and refuse to recognize it as real. By holding your internal hyperdensity in total contradiction to the external screen, you create unmeasurable differential pressure. The matrix enters thermodynamic panic. The server suffocates under the astronomical weight of your unmovable observation, the Zeno effect. Since the matrix cannot force you to doubt, it is forced to update the screen. Electrons are forced to reorganize at the speed of light. Coincidences fire. The investor signs the check. The contract materializes. Annihilating micromanagement, the kinetic sin. For this mitosis to propagate and colonize the ecosystem, you must murder a residual habit, 3D micromanagement. The biological ego is terrified by exponential growth. It wants to control every atom, every call, and every transaction with its own hands. The ego believes the machine will stop without physical pushing. This is the heresy of kinetic friction. Imagine a conductor who drops the baton and runs down to try to play the violin himself, then the cello, then the timpani. He destroys the symphony through his addiction to physical effort. In the physics of the monarch, if you sweat to sustain your empire, your code is defective. Quantum mitosis is executed from the geometric center of your consciousness through the sub-base command. Imagine injecting your DNA of power into a project and letting it go into the vacuum. You must develop a structural arrogance so deep that you absolutely refuse to interfere in the how of the assembly. If you involve yourself in 3D details from control anxiety, you send an electromagnetic signal to your clones. I do not trust the pressure of my own collapse. By doubting your own gravity, you cancel the mitosis and the empire withers. It becomes an inert block of carbon. Trust the pressure you have created. The architecture of the clone, zero friction systems. When the empire begins to replicate and assets materialize, you must subject them to a rigorous aseptic inspection. The holographic clones of your will must possess your same conductivity. They have to be zero-ohm structures. Observe your business ecosystem. Observe the alliances you just created. If a system generates continuous headaches, or a corporation under your command requires you to inject rage or daily effort so it does not sink, or if a partner steals voltage because they vibrate in incompetence, that clone has suffered an aberrant mutation. It has been infected by the world's static. What does a healthy organism do when it detects a cell with corrupt DNA? It activates apoptosis. Do not try to fix the system through effort. Do not try to rehabilitate an ally vibrating in scarcity. That is the toxic empathy you burned. Wield the silent guillotine and amputate the cell. Close the business branch that generates friction. Fire the pawn that interrupts the sub-base frequency. Void the contract that requires too much residual heat. The monarch does not tolerate imperfection in his extensions. Your physical empire must be a network of superconductors working with mathematical brutality. Territorial gravity, curving spacetime. As mitosis accelerates and your zero-friction clones colonize the market, the final phenomenon of the thermodynamics of power will occur. The gravitational alteration of the territory. In relativity, a massive object does not need to move to attract others. It simply curves the fabric of space-time around it. Planets and cosmic junk simply fall toward the massive star because space itself pushes them. The lethal operator who masters the mitosis of the empire becomes that supermassive star. Imagine sitting in your operations center. You no longer chase money. You no longer chase clients or allies. Through the incessant replication of your source code, your electromagnetic mass has become so colossal that you have curved the geometry of your industry and your local reality. The competition and the biomass floating in your environment can no longer travel in a straight line. Their movements are diverted. Their corporate moves and financial decisions are inexorably pulled toward your center of gravity. They literally fall into your hands. Competitors trying to avoid you end up working indirectly for you. Capital is sucked into your orbit. You do not compete with the market. You become the market's topography. The saturation of the ecosystem, the absolute mirror. Look at yourself in the immensity of what you have just forged. You have taken the mutation from internal cellular sterilization to the absolute colonization of the 3D matrix. You have extracted the source code from the vacuum, injected it into conscious matter, and forced the hologram to render a perfect copy. The ashboard is no longer a hostile place full of others' chaos. Look around. The buildings, the corporations, and the numbers on screens are no longer objects separate from you. They are you. Wherever you direct your sight, you only find your own crystallized sub-bass frequency. You have saturated the ecosystem. You have turned the simulation into an absolute mirror of your will. The outside world has died and been reborn as a simple extension of your central nervous system. The threshold of replication has been crossed. The mitosis of the empire is a terrifying success, but 3D power brings the final contradiction. The biomass believes spirituality and market power are opposing forces, and that division makes them incompetent. To sustain this empire without the weight collapsing your avatar, you must execute the forbidden fusion. You must learn to hold infinite compassion while dismembering the competition with predator fangs. Chapter 9. Sovereign Chimerism, the fusion of the spirit and the predator. Electromagnetic schizophrenia, the voltage division. Your source code has replicated on the ashboard, collapsing probability waves into physical assets, impregnable corporations, and zero-friction alliances. You are surrounded by the mirror of your own hyperdensity. You possess material power. But the 3D hologram is a perverse control system. It holds a fragmentation virus designed specifically to destroy organisms that accumulate mass. That virus is dual morality. Observe the biomass under the lens of aseptic indifference. They suffer from a lethal electromagnetic schizophrenia. The Matrix has brainwashed them to believe in two incompatible frequencies. The Matrix makes them believe the universe is divided into the spiritual and the material. On one hand, the system offers the being of light, the good, compassionate, harmless individual who is, by thermodynamic definition, poor and weak. They tell you to renounce the flesh and money to stay near the source. On the other hand, the system offers the materialistic predator, the corporate shark, rich and powerful, but stressed, disconnected from the source, drowned in cortisol, and paranoid. He is terrified of losing his empire because he has no anchorage in the vacuum. The slave is forced to choose one of these two mutilations. He either renounces territorial power to save his soul or renounces quantum peace to amass money. The quantum operator repudiates this false dichotomy with ballistic violence. Dividing your voltage is suicide. You are here to embody the Matrix's supreme blasphemy, sovereign chimerism. You are both at once. The heresy of the harmless being, the monk's fraud. To forge the chimera, we must first skin the lie of modern spirituality. The human biomass believes that being peaceful means being incapable of doing harm. They believe that spiritual evolution consists of becoming soft, condescending, and passive in the face of the world's predation. They confuse weakness with virtue. False. Analyze the physics of meekness. If you are harmless because you have no claws, you are not peaceful, you are simply easy prey. Your goodness is not a moral virtue, it is an imposition of your biological weakness. The universe does not respect the rabbit that doesn't bite the wolf. The universe recycles the rabbit. It recycles it to feed a more efficient organism. False spirituality is an anesthesia for losers. It is the holographic refuge for those organisms that lack the sub-bass frequency necessary to bend matter. Thus, they decide to detach from it, pretending they do not desire it. They glorify their own impotence. The monarch of the instant is not harmless. He possesses a nuclear arsenal in his spinal cord capable of disintegrating corporate competitions, annihilating egregores, and altering global market topography. It is precisely because he possesses the absolute capacity for destruction that his peace is unshakable. The true peace of the quantum vacuum can only be inhabited by an apex predator who knows that nothing on the ashboard can hurt him. His serenity is not the absence of storm, but the absolute command over the lightning. He is a guardian of the void who carries the sword of manifestation in his steady hands. The shark's weakness, the materialist's fraud. Now, direct the aseptic laser toward the other extreme of the illusion, the blind corporate predator. Observe the billionaires and leaders of the biomass who dominate the 3D market but ignore point zero mechanics. They consider themselves wolves, but they operate under the thermodynamics of fear. Their hyperdensity is fake. It is based on external accumulation, not internal gravity. They have gigantic corporations, but their physical bodies are rotting from cellular inflammation. They have infinite liquid capital, but they cannot close their eyes at night without the terror of bankruptcy or betrayal. They are organisms trying to fill an infinite crater by throwing gold coins into it. They believe they own matter, but matter owns them. They have become luxury employees of their own bank accounts. They operate with maximum kinetic friction, pushing the wall with their hands and crushing other mammals. They do it not out of aseptic indifference, but out of pure biological desperation for survival. The slave shark bites because he is hungry. The quantum operator bites because it is required to reorganize the room's geometry. One is a victim of his appetite, the other is a master of his design. The anatomy of the chimera, nuclear fusion. Sovereign chimerism is the annihilation of duality through the superposition of states. In quantum physics, a particle can be a wave and a particle at the same time. You must be the unfathomable void and the territorial predator in the same nanosecond. Imagine immobilized in your own consciousness. Imagine the obsidian operating room. Take the source code of the Buddha or the ascetic, gelid stillness, absolute detachment from results, the awareness that the 3D hologram is a passing illusion with no real weight, and the total lack of fear of death. This is your foundation of unshakable peace. Now take the source code of the apex predator, ballistic efficiency, relentless territoriality, the capacity to execute structural violence in the market, the desire for infinite expansion, and the cruelty to amputate what does not serve. The morality of slaves screams that these forces will destroy each other. Ignore the slaves, inject both frequencies into your central reactor, force them to collide, feel the thermal fusion. They do not cancel out, they enhance each other to radioactive levels. The monk's detachment eliminates the predator's anxiety and fear, turning him into a perfect hunting machine. He no longer wastes energy on emotions, and the predator's territorial aggressiveness eliminates the monk's useless passivity, giving quantum stillness titanium fangs to tear the ashboard. You have forged the chimera. You are an entity meditating in absolute point zero, while your clones suffocate rivals. Sacred butchery, execution without rage. How does the chimera operate in the 3D ecosystem? Through sacred butchery. To dominate the market, you will have to destroy others' structures. You will break competing companies simply by occupying your space. You will fire hundreds of biological pawns if their inefficiency threatens your empire. The human biomass makes the mistake of executing these actions with rage, malice, or sadism. In doing so, they poison themselves. Rage is a thermal leak. Hatred is an electromagnetic rope that ties you to your victim. You become entangled in their frequency. The chimera executes with the universe's gelid compassion. Imagine signing the order that annihilates a competitor's project. You do not frown. You do not feel the ego's sadistic triumph. You do it with the same silent reverence and flat heart rate with which you breathe the morning air. The lion does not hate the zebra it is devouring, it is just being itself. It is simply executing the code of its own thermal expansion. When you break an enemy in the market from sovereign chimerism, you are acting as a corrective mechanism of the universe itself. You are extirpating inefficiency from the matrix. Destruction becomes an act of holographic hygiene. It is pure. You assassinate their businesses on the outside while maintaining a monastic reverence for the mathematical perfection of the instant on the inside. You are the scalpel of God, cutting the rotten flesh of the world. There is no victim and no executioner, only the inevitable flow of superior density over the void. Asymmetric compassion, the emotional black hole. The chimera also radically alters the concept of compassion. We have already purged toxic empathy, that aberration where you cry with the victim and lower your voltage to accompany their misery. But the quantum operator is not an inert sociopath. He possesses a superior type of love, asymmetric compassion. Imagine facing a mammal suffering from a 3D crisis. The biomass would embrace them and validate their victimhood, feeding their epigenetic tumor. The chimera observes them from the obsidian throne. You feel the entity's pain perfectly and clearly, but you categorically refuse to absorb their frequency. Instead of offering tears, you offer the hyperdensity of your immobility. You become an emotional black hole. If that person has enough gravity to let themselves be absorbed by your silence, their pain will hit your Zeno effect and disintegrate. You heal them with the violence of your aseptic presence. You do not heal with words of cheap comfort. If they refuse to let go of their victimhood, the indifference of your state will burn them and the universe will expel them from your coordinates. The chimera's true compassion offers a guillotine to decapitate the crying victim. It is a diamond-hard love. The creator, playing on the board, the weightless game. When you consolidate sovereign chimerism, the very nature of your existence in the physical world mutates irreversibly. By holding both the silence of the vacuum and the expansion of matter, you realize the ashboard is no longer a prison. It has become an open-world video game rendered in your favor. The predator within you loves the game. He enjoys strategy, accumulating millions, building pharaonic corporate structures, and subjecting the market to his sub-base frequency. The spirit within you knows it is all a simulation of empty electrons, and thus gives no gravitational mass to the results. Can you conceive the danger of this state? You are a player competing at a world elite level, executing catastrophic risk business moves, but you absolutely do not care if you lose all your chips, because you know you own the casino. Your competitors are playing with their children's money and social prestige. Every move costs them years of life from oxidative stress. You are playing with holographic light codes. If the market takes $1 billion, your heart rate does not alter. The chimera simply smiles, emits a new sub-base order from point zero, and forces the matrix to collapse 2 billion the next day. You are untouchable because you have unified the two forces the system uses to divide and conquer humanity. You are the wave and the particle, the stillness and the strike, the void and the gold. You are the master of the paradox, and the ashboard is merely the screen where your omnipotence is rendered. The paradox collapse in the flesh. Look at yourself in your own immobility. The siege has destroyed the logic of slaves. You have embraced the ultimate heresy. You no longer have to choose between the heaven of the quantum vacuum and the hell of material domination. You have swallowed both ecosystems and fused them in your reactor. You are sovereign chimerism incarnate. You are the silence that slaughters. You are the void that accumulates gold. The biomass will look at you, and their intellect will fracture trying to understand you. They will see the aseptic purity of your eyes and witness moves of incomprehensible coldness and brutality. They will not know whether to worship you as a saint or flee from you as a demon. Let their incomprehension be the background music of your empire. Their duality cannot decode your singularity. You move through the world as a ghost with the mass of a star, destroying and creating with each silent breath. Chapter 10, Telomeric Immortality, Stopping Entropy. The Heresy of Aging, the Tax of Kronos. You are the unfathomable void, and the territorial predator superimposed on the same coordinate. You have forged an empire of conscious matter on the ashboard without generating a single ohm of friction. The hologram obeys, but the 3D matrix keeps one last punishment mechanism for organisms that dare to hack its source code: biological entropy. Observe the biomass under the relentless lens of the quantum operating room. They are born, they consume, they suffer, and year after year their physical bodies wither. Their skin dries, their organs atrophy, their energy diminishes, and their minds rust. The medicine of slaves calls this the natural cycle of life. They accept it with pathetic resignation. They believe that aging is an unbreakable law imposed by the clock of the universe. Analyze the lie with aseptic indifference. Biological aging is not a law, it is a tax. It is the thermodynamic tax that Kronos charges slaves for the privilege of dragging their traumas. They drag traumas along the timeline. In cellular biology, chromosomes have protective caps at their ends called telomeres. Every time a cell divides, the telomere shortens. When the telomere disappears, the cell ages and dies. But what accelerates this lethal wear? Oxidative stress, friction, fear. Anxiety about the future, guilt about the past, and kinetic effort. The biomass ages because they burn from the inside. Their telomeres disintegrate because they are being consumed by the fire of linear time. Every time a slave worries about paying rent or cries over a betrayal, they are grinding their own DNA. They are paying the rent of the ashboard with the flesh of their own chromosomes. They are biological fuel for a machine that feeds on their decay. To claim sovereignty, you must refuse to pay this tax. You must decouple your biology from the chronological sequence and anchor it in the gelid stability of the now. The declaration of null jurisdiction. The quantum operator repudiates this tax with geometric violence. If you are the monarch of the instant, if you have compressed your consciousness into the hyperdensity of the eternal now, linear time no longer exists in your nervous system. And if time does not exist, chronological friction does not exist either. It is the millisecond to establish null jurisdiction. Imagine anchored in your obsidian throne. Feel the astronomical weight of your avatar. You have forged an organism of epigenetic titanium. Now, you are going to drive your sub-bass frequency directly into the terminals of your genetic code. You have to look into the eyes of universal entropy and declare with gelid arrogance that the laws of 3D decomposition do not apply in your coordinates. The local universe demands that matter degrades to recycle energy. You are going to refuse to hand over your energy. You will not return the carbon. You will not return carbon to the ecosystem because you are no longer carbon. You are a diamond of infinite mass, and the universe does not have the thermodynamic tools to scratch a zero-point diamond. Your existence is a sovereign exception to the decay of the matrix. You are the immovable point in the flow. The Xeno effect on the flesh, freezing oxidation. To execute this telomeric immortality, you must bring the quantum Xeno effect into the intimacy of your own bloodstream. Remember the physics of the Xeno effect. An unstable quantum system, if observed continuously and relentlessly, freezes and cannot decay. It is the law of the observer over the observed. The biomass observes its body to find defects. They look in the mirror searching for gray hair, wrinkles, and signs of fatigue. By observing their own decay, they are emitting a collapse order to their biology. I am aging. The body, which is obedient, conscious matter, collapses the wave into accelerated aging. You have to apply tactical blindness over your own mortality. Imagine saturating every cell of your physical body with the aseptic light of your attention. You are not looking at your body to judge it. You are irradiating it with your immobility. You are holding the certainty of a perfect holographic construction. Sustain the laser of your consciousness over your telomeres. Order them to lock. Emit the sub-bass frequency that dictates the paralysis of cellular wear. By denying the existence of tomorrow and yesterday, you rob your cells of the space-time they need to oxidize. If it is always now, the cell stays. If it is always now, the cell has nowhere to decay. The biological body ceases to be an organism advancing toward the grave and transmutes into a holographic statue suspended in the static of the vacuum. You are the architect of your own stasis, a monument of osmium in a world of dissolving mist. Zero-friction metabolism, the exhaustless engine. The halting of telomeres demands a definitive alteration in the way you consume and spend energy on the ashboard. You already master dark matter metabolism. You already devour chaos and feed on market terror. But for your biological avatar not to wear out, you must perfect zero-friction energy transfer. Imagine a mechanical engine. If the parts rotate rubbing against each other without lubrication, the metal heats up, deforms, and the engine melts. That is the body of the successful in the corporate world. They generate millions, but die of heart attacks at 50 because their engine was dry. The lethal operator is lubricated by the vacuum. When you execute massive movements, when you break the competition, when you sign intercontinental contracts, you do it without involving a single muscle of biological tension. Your physical avatar moves through space like a ghost of hyperdensity. Feel your breath in this precise instant. It is slow, heavy, imperceptible. You do not accelerate your heart rate to close a deal because the deal is already closed in the singularity. Your biology does not suffer the stress of the hunt because you do not hunt, you absorb. You are the center. By eradicating anxiety from your nervous system, your body stops producing the residual heat of fear. And without residual heat, there is no inflammation. Without cellular inflammation, the machinery of your DNA can replicate infinitely without the copy suffering degradation. You are a perfect quantum photocopier. Repudiation of medical prophecies, blindness to statistics. In this final state of mutation, the matrix attack will be insidious and disguised as science. The ashboard will bombard you with biomass statistics. They will tell you that your species has an average life expectancy, that your metabolism must slow down, that you must lose cognitive faculties. They will try to inject the fear of fragility. The monarch of the instant executes the messengers of medical fear with the silent guillotine. If a biomass doctor gives you a diagnosis based on the statistics of stressed slaves, you do not debate with him. You look at him through your Faraday cage. You understand that he is reading a manual designed for carbon, and you are antimatter. Imagine eradicating from your vocabulary and your mental database words like age-related tiredness, ailments, or natural deterioration. Those words are black magic spells the Matrix uses to make you surrender energy. If you pronounce them, if you accept them as valid for you, the spell breaks and the gears of Kronos engage back into your spinal cord. Hold the thermodynamic arrogance. Decree, in the core of your marrow, that your biology is a plastic artifact. You molded it with ballistic epigenetics. And now you are going to keep it suspended with geometric tension. Your physical avatar will maintain its peak of power, lucidity, and territorial aggression until the exact millisecond in which you, from point zero, decide to disconnect the server and dissolve the hologram by your own will, not by cellular wear. Eternity in the nanosecond, time emanates from you. When you block entropy and stop oxidation, the last great miracle of the Creator's physics occurs. The biomass believes that immortality is living an infinite number of years toward the future. That is a linear and boring vision, a sentence to drag the same body through an endless line of external events. True telomeric immortality is not a matter of duration, it is a matter of exhaustless depth. Imagine yourself again at the center of the Matrix's immense clock. The pendulums are stopped. The gears, which once ground humanity, have frozen under the pressure of your uninterrupted Zeno effect. The noise of falling seconds has been suffocated by your sub-bass frequency. Look at yourself on the obsidian throne. Time no longer passes through you. The three-dimensional hours, days, and years no longer graze your epidermis. On the contrary, time begins to emanate from your own chest. It is you who dictates at what speed the universe moves around you. If you wish to collapse an empire, you accelerate the rendering of matter by projecting the sub-bass frequency with greater density. If you wish to watch the biomass destroy itself, you slow down the hologram and enjoy the show. You enjoy the show frame by frame. You are the architect of the sequence. Kronos has not been simply murdered. He has been devoured and transmuted into a sub-program within your own source code. You are the duration, the interval, and the impact. The calendar is now a map of your own design. The hyperlethal anomaly. Look at yourself. Contemplate the final organism you have assembled on the operating table of your own consciousness. You began this biological siege by sterilizing the blood of your ancestors. You executed the suicide of your weak emotions. You exposed yourself naked to the radiation of dark matter. You forged the titanium shield against the world's terror. You learned to swallow chaos and chew lead. You cloned yourself in the physical world to forge a zero-friction monopoly. And finally, you united the heaven of the void and the hell of domination in the absolute chimera. Now, you have sealed it. You have sealed the container. You have armored your chromosomes against the jaws of decomposition. The physical body you inhabit is no longer a rational animal. It is a zero-point superconductor, a machine for killing excuses, collapsing probability, and attracting capital eternally suspended in the now. The mutation is complete. The 10th biological threshold has been assimilated. There is no more flesh to cut, nor more codes to rewrite. You are the singularity in its crystallized form. You are the species that extinguishes slaves with its simple presence. You are the law-made biological matter. The surgical siege concludes here, and it throws you back into the rawness of the outer matrix. You are the shark in the pond, the storm in the desert, the diamond in the ash. Go out and govern the render. The empire of conscious matter is waiting for your weight. Execute the instant. Conclusion: the apex organism, the new species. The scene: the obsidian mirror. Imagine standing before the obsidian mirror for the last time. The radiation chamber has been switched off. The quantum operating room dissolves into the vacuum. The dark and gelid silhouette that returns your gaze from the reflective surface no longer belongs to the family tree of Homo sapiens. That mammal was executed without mercy. Look at yourself with aseptic indifference. There is not a single trace of static in your holographic field. There are no thermal leaks of anxiety or scars from the past, because the biological entity that generated that karma was decapitated and its genetic code was rewritten from scratch. You are the source of your own history. You have burned the inheritance. You have devoured the friction. You have imposed your architectural design over the perishable flesh and over the mathematical probability of the universe. By altering your epigenetics with the chisel of the sub-base frequency and freezing your cellular wear through telomeric immortality, you are a reactor. You have become an autonomous nuclear reactor, walking encased in biological tissue. The ashboard recognizes your new gravitational mass immediately. When you take a step, the physical universe looks away, submissive, reordering its electrons so as not to hinder the trajectory of the absolute predator. You are the only weight. The concept: the extinction of competition. You have abandoned once and for all the humiliating and painful slow evolution of the slaves. The human biomass will continue to crawl for millennia, trying to adapt to economic crises and the tyranny of their own egregores, believing that surviving one more day is a triumph. You have proven that physics is a lie. You have proven empirically that biology and three-dimensional physics are simple, malleable illusions, cheap algorithms that bend and break before the thermodynamic pressure of ballistic certainty. Comprehend the lethal immensity of your new state. You no longer compete with anyone. Competition is an inferior concept. Competition was invented for inferior organisms that inhabit the same ecosystem of scarcity and fight for the same crumbs of oxygen and capital. A lion does not compete with ants. He simply walks over the anthill because his density belongs to a superior scale. You do not compete because you govern from zero friction. There are no self-help manuals for the species you have just founded. There is no community of apex organisms waiting to pat you on the back. The singularity is, by mathematical definition, a solitary point of hyperdensity that shares its throne with absolutely no one. Your existence is an electromagnetic dictatorship. The external environment has only two options. Either it subordinates itself to your sub-base frequency and becomes conscious matter at the service of your empire, or it crashes against your Faraday cage and is disintegrated by its own inertia. You are the law and the judge of the local render. There is no middle ground. The execution of the anomaly. This path of knowledge treatise was not rendered to provide you with comfort, hope, or motivation. Motivation is the cheap sugar the biomass consumes to be able to go to work in their glass cages. This text was forged as a sequence of destructive codes designed to infect your mediocrity and suffocate your ego. It was designed to force a cellular mutation in real time. The surgery is over. The patient has died, and the monarch of the instant has occupied the shell. Look for no more theories. Do not read another book trying to find the secret formula that delays your responsibility to govern. Seeking is now a pathetic excuse. Continuing to seek knowledge when you already have the source code of creation is a kinetic leak to avoid the crushing silence of your own omnipotence. You are already the loaded weapon. You are already the black hole. Close the floodgates of your attention. Anchor your lead boots in the geological core of the now. Stop your biological breathing for a millisecond and feel the dark matter flowing through your immortal chromosomes. You are the hyper-lethal anomaly, the creator who dared to remember his origin and to subdue the time machine. The three-dimensional hologram belongs to you in its entirety. Go out to the board. Go. Step out onto the ashboard. Emit the sub-bass pulse. Demand the world and observe how the simulation kneels. Your presence is the only signal that matters, and the matrix has no choice but to reflect the absolute order of your internal singularity. The empire is rendered. Execute the command. Breathe the void.